I'm Richard Steinnon, Chief Research Analyst with IT Harvest, and I cover the entire IT security space. And I study the companies in it and the solutions, the technology, and trying to identify trends. We have to talk about Stuxnet, Flame, all of which had some component of attacks against digital certificates in them. Flame went a step beyond that. Flame actually used a MD5 Hash Collision, very, very expensive numerically process to actually accomplish. They used an MD5 Hash Collision to create fraudulent Microsoft certificates and then trick the targeted machines into believing that they're getting a Microsoft update. So it's almost the perfect storm. If you can compromise a major vendor's update service, which is trusted in more ways than one. The connection is trusted, the software that comes down is trusted because it's digitally signed, but if they can get in that way, then they pretty much have compromised anything that they target. And now we discover that Chevron is being attacked or has been infected with variants of Stuxnet. The French government claims that Flame has infiltrated their system. Not sure how that happens unless they're actually targeted, but we're seeing these high levels of trust of software being pretty much taken advantage of by the attackers, bad guys, nation states, cyber criminals, in order to compromise their systems. So I see looking forward in 2013 and beyond, we're going to see some much more sophisticated attacks similar to that. We're going to see attacks against software updates all the time now that Flame has kind of demonstrated to the world how to do it. Would it be worth it to a cyber criminal attacker to do the same thing against Adobe? In other words, any machine that's running Adobe, they could update it and have the machine trust the update, and then they own that machine. And would it be worth $250,000 to execute an MD5 Hash Collision attack against that certificate? Probably, for some of these high-value targets. Paying attention to the types of attacks we've seen, like an MD5 Hash Collision attack against a Microsoft certificate, now we know that happens. So now turn around and look at your own organization and say, hey, do we have MD5 hash-based certificates in our organizations? And those are going to be vulnerable, as Venafi in their own survey found 17.5% of respondents did use MD5 hash for the basis of their certificates. Therefore, they're vulnerable. Whereas Microsoft immediately revoked those certificates and moved on from MD5. But all these other organizations, 1/5 of them, probably aren't taking that step, and they probably should. It's time for organizations to look at what they're doing for certificate discovery and management today and compare it to best practices. NIST has published a bulletin on it, July 2012. And of course, the Venafis of the world have their best practices guidances too. Of course, they're going to sell you the tool to actually enable their best practices. But those best practices include discovery, 100% discovery of all the certificates from all the issuers. These are going to be, multiple encryption schemes, multiple signing schemes, multiple hash algorithms. You have to know where they are. And then you have to line up what you have with what the best practices are for key length, the revocation period, where the revocation lists are, and the process for doing those revocations. All that has to be in a single pane of glass so you can see what you've got and what you need to do to control it.